Professor of Political Science and International Affairs at the American University. Professor, always good seeing you. So firstly, what's your take on Darya Dugina's killing and all the accusations and denials following her death?
Well, they always say the first casualty in war is the truth, and there's a lot of spin going on now. And of course, we'll probably know more of the story later. But a couple things are clear to me. First of all, uh, I'm sure there were Russians involved. Whether or not this was a Ukrainian operation and the Ukrainian individual, I'm sure there were Russians involved supporting this. And the claim by the exiled Russian leader that said that this Russian nationalist force was involved, I don't know if that's true, but it's very hard to pull off this this type of operation as a lone foreign agent. Second of all, whether or not the Ukrainian state was involved, and I think the accusations coming from Russia that now this proves Ukraine is a state terrorist state when Russians have killed thousands of Ukrainian civilians. If Ukraine is a state terrorist state now, they've done less than 1% of what Russia's done. Now, nothing justifies any death. I think the only death we can justify in wartime is if you kill someone who's about to kill you, or if you kill a terrorist who's about to launch an operation, or who's directing an operation that's about to launch that's about to kill you. But other than that, I never support targeted assassinations of any kind,
Mm.
and certainly not for somebody who's nonviolent and is, someone of ideas, not someone who's. And I wouldn't call this philosopher, Putin, the architect of the war. He's a justifier of the war. He's justifying war crimes, but he's not the architect of Putin's war. So I think it's time to sort of step back and look at what we're doing here. I think Ukraine has been very intelligent to limit its attacks on Russian positions to those within captured territories, such as the recent ramping up in Crimea. I don't think targeted assassinations of this kind are going to do either side much good at this point.
Well, then if Ukrainian forces are innocent, as you're suggesting, then do you think it's fair to imagine that Darya's death could have been an inside job? I mean, to coincide with Ukraine's independence celebrations, would that serve Russia's rhetoric?
I don't think it's coinciding with anything, and I don't think, given the facts that we have, that it was an inside job. Except, I believe that Russians were involved. Whether those Russians were in the government is a whole nother level. But we had Russian infiltration at the highest levels of the Ukrainian government, and I think when this war's over, we'll find out that there was Ukrainian infiltration at the highest levels of the Russian government. So it's always possible that that was part of the picture. But what it looks like here is a botched operation in which they were targeting the father and they got the daughter instead, due to this last minute change. If the Ukrainian state was involved, I think they've probably tried very hard to cover their tracks. And so, I think, again, it would be a while before, we would find a way to trace this back to the Ukrainian government. But as I said, I don't think this does either side any good, except, as your question indicates, to spin up a narrative against the other side. But certainly it doesn't accomplish any war aim, and won't help the Ukrainians or the Russians accomplish what they want to do in this context.
Yeah, certainly a very confusing issue. Meanwhile, defense analysts say Russia will only use Darya's killing to justify more attacks in Ukraine. And Moscow on Monday said its operation in Ukraine is far from over. Professor, 6 months down, can you say Russia's accomplished anything it primarily set out to?
Yeah, it's weakened and put down Ukrainians and their economy, to punish Ukraine, for all time. They've doubled the amount of territory they hold in Ukraine. I think the big prize at this point is Odessa, and I don't think the Russians are going to get it. And beyond that, I think this is just a war of attrition until the two sides figure out there's no point in having a war anymore. I don't think the Ukrainians are going to muster enough forces and weapons to completely kick the Russians out. And I don't think the Russians have the power or the morale within their troops to conquer much more territory in Ukraine. So it's going to be a back and forth until we enter phase 3 of this war, when both sides realize they're just jockeying for position, for the final outcome, but they won't have any more major victories that push the lines, hundreds of kilometers in this direction or that direction. And that's why I've been so bullish on the Turkish efforts here, because the grain deal that Turkey negotiated looks a lot like the eventual deal we'll have in Ukraine to bring this war to an end. Whether that's months or years from now depends, of course, on the course of the war and the balance of powers. But right now, we're just seeing death and destruction, and civilians are now the targets, but also the victims. War is hell, and you're seeing it on your screen. And certainly anything that escalates this war is bad. Anything that de-escalates this war is good.
Always helpful getting your perspective, Professor William Lawrence at American University. Thank you.